Hey everybody, welcome to Season 3 of the Duce Raymond Podcast, and today we have a super special guest. I'm so excited that Ethan Suplee is with us. You guys might know him from American History X, Wolf of Wall Street, My Name Is Earl, some of those shows, and I'm so excited. Now Ethan's really big in the health and fitness space and has his own podcast called American Glutton, is actually how we got introduced. And Ethan, thank you so much for being here today, man.
Hey, Duce, thanks for having me. My pleasure.
Oh, well, I'm telling you, when I put together a list of podcast guests, and we're going to do 12 episodes, so it was a short list, and you were on my list that was going to be a big ask to get, and you responded right away, so I appreciate it so much.
Oh, it's my pleasure, man. I'm a big fan of what you're doing. I love to eat, I love to cook, and I love health and fitness. So I think all these things magically combine.
Yeah, I know. We really do align on a lot of stuff. So we're on the Duce Raymond Podcast. So I was going to ask you, what is your barbecue order? If you go to a barbecue restaurant and you're letting loose a little bit, what do you like to get?
I think my favorite thing to order is a beef rib. A beef rib is my absolute favorite thing to get. And then, but it's not as ubiquitous, I think, as pork ribs. You see pork ribs more often, and then brisket is kind of the thing that is, I find to be the most common. And I like those things quite a bit, but like when there's a beef rib on the menu and it's done well, that is one of my absolute favorite things to eat.
Yeah. It's hard to beat that. And then what I tell people is kind of like a burnt end on a stick, like the best piece of the brisket right on top of a bone. And it's just, if it's done right, like you said, super tender, unctuous, all that fatty goodness there.
Yeah, and it's hard to beat that. It's something that you don't really see in a grocery store. I have seen beef ribs in a grocery store, but never with that piece of meat. You're mostly buying a much smaller piece of meat on top of the ribs and then whatever meat you would find in between them. But the grocery stores I go to generally don't have beef ribs. You can get short ribs, which you can make a nice meal out of short ribs on the bone, but there is just something magical about a beef rib with a big hunk of meat on there.
Yeah, you're right, though. Those are called plate cut ribs, and those are hard to find. You can see them sometimes at Costco and Sam's, but then like the restaurant supply stores will have them. It's like the specific name for it is 123A plate cut rib, and those are the 3 bone slabs with the meat that pops up really high on the bones.
There's a butcher in New York. I live in New York, and they're far from my house. They're on the Upper East Side. I live downtown. Called Lobel's, and it's a really, really nice butcher. And if I'm ever going to cook something really nice, I will go to them. And they have stuff that you just don't see all over the place. Like you can get an entire ribeye cap from Lobel's and do something really fun with that. I mean, and I think that's the silliest cut of meat ever, but God, is it good.
Yeah, no, it's delicious for sure. So you're in New York most of the time, or sometimes you're out west as well, or no?
Yeah. I go back and forth, but I am mostly in New York.
So like the barbecue, like if you wanted to do some grilling or smoking yourself, that's probably kind of restrained in New York, huh?
I don't do that at all in New York. I do the extent of my cooking will be a braise, or I'll pan sear a steak and finish it in the oven, and even that. Kitchens in New York are not, even extraordinarily wealthy people don't have impressive kitchens. Kitchens are small, they're cramped.
Really?
I have been in one house that I thought had a decently impressive kitchen, and the guy actually had a chef cooking for him, and I think he built the kitchen specifically to the chef's specifications. But like, New York is kind of a tough place to do elaborate home cooking. But we lived between here and Florida for a long time, and in Florida, I had a beautiful Napoleon outside grill. It had a spit on it. I had a Traeger smoker, and you know, I spent a lot of time outside cooking out there.
That's some of the best ways to do meal prep that I found is like I have a Weber Searwood, which is kind of equivalent to a Traeger. But yeah, you could put a bunch of chicken breasts out there, but I could do hamburgers, steaks. I could cook a whole brisket. It's very versatile, but I like barbecue from a meal prep perspective because you could do a lot of meat at once and then, you know, divvy it up however you want.
Yeah, and you get a lot more bang for your buck because a lot of the fat is dripping out of the food, plus you're getting flavor that you're just not gonna get with a pan.
Yeah, I know it is a good thing. Like sometimes even now in Chicago, a lot more of my cooking is done inside because it's 2 degrees outside.
Right.
But it's good to change it up too. You could have pan-seared stuff and then grilled stuff sometimes. So it's nice because, I mean, I don't know where you're at exactly with how you do meal prep, but, it's a lot of the same ingredients, but you could change up the flavor profiles with different spices and herbs. But I eat a lot of chicken breast and rice, or I'm really onto this. I don't know if you eat a lot of the Japanese sweet potato. I've been on a big Japanese sweet potato kick lately.
They're so much better than our dull American sweet potatoes. And it might just be that we've had so much of them for so many years that when I had a Japanese sweet potato, probably within the last couple of years, there was a place in, there was an Israeli place in Los Angeles called Meze, and it was open very briefly before the pandemic, and then I believe it shut down in the pandemic, and I'm surprised it never came back because there was always a line, but that was the first time I had Japanese sweet potatoes, and they were astonishing, and I couldn't find them in a grocery store, but this place, Meze, served them, and so we would go and get them there. We were probably at that restaurant once a week. Then it closed down, and then I didn't hear about them for a while, but my kids found a place in New York where you could get them, and so now we eat them quite a bit.
That's awesome. One thing that you talk a lot about on American Glutton, and I think that this is really important, and for people that are looking to go on a health journey is, and I found this true for myself, was that the weight loss isn't the end goal. Can you talk about that and your experience and what you think about that?
Yeah, so for many, many years, well over a decade, probably close to 2, I really was, and this was not something I sat down and thought about. I didn't cart a path to the belief that when I hit a certain number on the scale, I would be done, like I was done with some kind of a race, like a marathon. But I was operating from that belief system. Everything I was doing, it was as though that was just a preconceived idea. Once I get to the correct weight, I will be fixed. And that just never happened. I just never could find what that weight was. And when I've lost 300 pounds total, just slightly more than 300 pounds as of now. I can remember at one point, the lowest I got to was around 240, which is a full 10 pounds lighter than I am now. And I still was like, I have no idea what my target is. I'm just kind of waiting to achieve some kind of sense of accomplishment or sense of finality. And so I'm going to go see this doctor and hopefully he'll tell me. And I went in thinking it's probably 20 more pounds. I probably have to get to 220. And the doctor, it was actually the doctor from The Biggest Loser, Dr. Huizenga, who I went to see. He's a big sports medicine doctor in Los Angeles, and I got an appointment with him. It was not cheap, but I needed this like authoritative person to tell me, you need to get to X. And I walked in and I was like, look, dude, I'm 240. I'm pretty sure I have to get to 220. And he was like, well, let me stop you right there. No. you got much more weight to lose. I need you to get to 185. And I was devastated, dude. I was like, it was like I got punched in the gut. The wind got knocked out of me, because at this point, I'd been dieting. I guess at that point, I'd been dieting 10 plus years. And then the scheme I was working on then was just a ton of cardio and just eating very little. I was riding bicycles every day. I had these like really strong legs, very little upper body strength, but I didn't care because I was just only interested in riding a bike. And every ounce of weight loss at that point was a struggle. It was really hard. I'd lost over 300 pounds at that point. And so when he said it's closer to 60 pounds than to 20, I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. And he kind of like threw in as a consolation, well, how about this? We're going to throw you on a DEXA scan. Maybe you could be 190. Maybe you have big bones or something, and it's not 185. And that was supposed to make me feel better, those 5 pounds, right? And I go and do the DEXA scan, and I come out, and he's like, I cannot believe this. You're done. You don't need to lose any weight. You're 14% body fat. You are finished. You're completely done. And I got to tell you, that was almost as disappointing as him telling me I needed to lose a massive amount of weight, because I didn't feel done. I didn't have any sense of accomplishment. I didn't look at myself and think, that's a good-looking, muscular body. I looked at myself going, God, I still have a lot of work to do, and just guessing at figures. And so, like, but that's how I operated. I was waiting for the inner enlightenment to match whatever progress I had made with weight loss. And it took me many more years to really understand that my condition is chronic. It is recurring and relapsing, or recurring and remitting. It is a condition that I've had since I was a little kid. It is a condition that I believe I will have for the rest of my life. It is a condition that has no cure. However, it can be managed. And that management is going to be a lifelong pursuit. And when it's framed in that way, there's no finish line. There will be no, Buddha sitting under the Bodhi tree enlightenment after 49 days of meditation. That's all ancillary stuff that I have to work on separate from weight loss, a feeling, wanting to not be ashamed of myself. It just didn't happen through weight loss. Now, that's not to say there weren't days where I got on the scale and I was very happy about the number I saw. But that sense of happiness and accomplishment lasted 5 minutes. 5 minutes later,
or 5 seconds.
5 seconds. Yeah, I'm back into real life, and nothing really has changed. And there will be moments where if I get on a plane and I don't need a seatbelt extender, I feel a sense of pride and accomplishment at that. When, I have so much travel anxiety, probably because I spent the majority of my life obese. And traveling is just not comfortable. Not that it's super comfortable, because it's still not super comfortable for me, but it's so much more uncomfortable for obese people. And then the fact that, walking to the gate is a huge effort when you're carrying around an extra couple 100 pounds, and the sense of the idea of shame of being late because you're fat, it made me always want to be super early, like hours early, just so there was never a moment where anybody could judge me that I'm late because of my weight. Now, when I get to the airport, I still have all that anxiety and I have to fight through it. And when I walk to the airline, when I walk to the gate and I'm not winded, I'm not out of breath, I haven't sweat through my shirt, I can sit down and go like, this is better. I am more comfortable now. And still, even that sense of pride and joy that I get from that lasts all of 5 seconds. So it's these moments that I can latch onto occasionally and go like, yes, this is better. But the inner stuff where I'm, not demeaning myself all the time and not feeling a sense of shame and not feeling like I'm out of place in the world. And, I have a mixture of annoyance and envy at people who can wait online at like a Starbucks and then arrive at the front of the line only to then look up at the menu and start to make a decision about what they want to order. You know what I mean? Like for me,
I'm the same way.
Yeah, I am so not worthy of wasting another's time because somehow I'm fat. Like it doesn't make any sense to me at all when I say it out loud, but that's the truth of it. Like, and so I know what I want before I walk in the door. I've rehearsed how I'm going to make my order just so I do not take up a moment of somebody else's time because I'm fat. This is fucking madness. And so, sorry for swearing. This is complete madness.
You can swear.
I can cut it out later. But like, why don't I feel a sense of ownership of time and space enough to not have the anxiety about rehearsing my order before I walk into an establishment? You know what I mean? And then there are different ways that I rationalize this. Like now, to be honest with you, when I go to a restaurant, I almost always preview the menu prior to going because I want to make decisions that are correct for me. I was going to say healthy, but like healthy I think is relative and subjective. And so I want to make choices that are correct for me in that moment. What exercise did I do that day? What have I already eaten? What is an appropriate dinner? But at the same time, I don't want to waste the waiter's time because I'm still a fat person who does not deserve wasting that waiter's time. So I'm going to know exactly what I want to order before, when I see the waiter or the bus staff coming back with plates, I'm telling everyone, like I'm clocking, what is it? Hey, that's your food. Pay attention. Let them know. Because I don't feel worthy of people's time. And it's this kind of madness that is constantly setting me on edge that I thought when I become a normal person, when I weigh what a normal person weighs, I won't have that anymore. And guess what? I still have all of it, every last bit of it. I still wake up and look in the mirror and think, you fat piece of shit, you don't deserve to walk out of your house without being humiliated. And I have to find other ways outside of weight loss to deal with that.
Yeah, that is, similar to some of my experience for sure. And I constantly, sometimes I'll wake up in the morning, go into the bathroom and look in the mirror and expect to see 300-pound Duce. And it's such a weird experience that I can't explain it. But I had a similar experience when I went on my first, it wasn't a DEXA scan, it was an in-body scan. And this was like during COVID when I got my leanest. All I was doing was walking outside, and I was working at the restaurant. Back then, all we had was the restaurant. The catering business was completely closed down, and I was like unloading cases of brisket in the cooler. I was standing up working the line the whole time because that's like, we thought we were going to lose our whole business. It was really scary. But I woke up early and listened to the doom news, and I walked for like 2 hours, and then I would go to work and work on my feet all day. And so I got as lean as pretty much just about where I am now. And I got my buddy Joe opened up his gym the same time, and he had an in-body scan. And I went in there, and I know it's not 100% accurate, but I'm rationalizing this in my head.
No, neither is DEXA, but it's close. Yeah.
But it said 11% body fat. And I'm like, there's no way. Like, I still look in the mirror and say, there's no freaking way. It's not possible. Like, 11% is like 3% from going on stage in a bodybuilding contest. That's not me. Right. So it's like, but it doesn't, it could be the loose skin. It could be whatever, and it's just, there's no, that just because I got to that certain weight had no implication that I was done with my journey or that I didn't have all these other emotional attachments to food or the way I felt about myself,
Yeah, that's I thought I'd hit a number I'd feel better about myself and all the problems. I saw life through the lens of everything is bad because of my weight, and I thought everything would be good now because of my weight if I solved my weight. And it just unfortunately doesn't work that way. There are some things that are better. Sitting on an airplane in between two rests and not spilling over them into my neighbor's seat, that's better. Not getting winded walking up a flight of stairs is better. But I can't exist in the happiness of that permanently. It's very fleeting. And then I have all this other garbage that I just assumed was solely due to my weight that didn't go anywhere when I lost weight. And so finding ways to work on that are really important. And yeah, you mentioned loose skin. Loose skin was not something anyone brought up to me when I started losing weight. It wasn't in any of the diet books I read. It was not something that I was prepared for at all. And it was really disappointing after a couple of years recognizing that the skin is not going to go anywhere, and trying to solve it with red lights and lotions and mineral wraps and stuff like that. That's tough, man. And I think like guys like you and me have to talk about that, because not to dissuade anybody from weight loss, but just to say like, look, I don't know that all your dreams are going to come true. And you still might look at yourself and go like, this isn't what I wanted. I didn't want to be fat. I don't want to be this version of thin. I want to look like a normal person, whatever the hell that means, right? Like everybody kind of looks different, but like if we, and what's normal now? The average is obese. So like, we can't even use that word normal anymore because we're trying to escape the norm now.
Right. Yeah. I'm struggling with that a little bit myself. We talked about that on your podcast when I was on your podcast a couple of years ago, and I'm still haven't pulled the trigger on the loose skin, and I'm still fighting some of that, which you kind of scolded me on your podcast. Was like, you've done the work, you're ready. If you want to do it, you could do it now, And I still feel like I have something else to prove, or some other way to get more muscle or something before I'm justified to do it. Like I'm not worthy of getting the loose skin surgery.
Okay, well, listen, two things, and I will scold you. You're exactly who should be scolded on this. You can, your skin is elastic. You will always have room to build muscle. You can always build muscle, and when they cut off your loose skin, they don't take it all. It's impossible for them to take it all. You still, it's. I would say it's better, but it's not 100%. And then Number three, or finally, I would just say there's so many. I look at social media sometimes and I get so disappointed in people that are nowhere near as lean as you, still probably in the plus 30% body fat, who are talking about going to get loose skin cut off. And I'm going like, they're going to wind up cutting an awful lot of fat out of this guy just to get the skin cut off. And people can lose 200 pounds and still be above 30% body fat, and I think this is such a bad example, because first of all, the surgery becomes very dangerous at that point. When you're cutting out that much fat, you have like a lot more blood loss. It's a lot harder of a surgery. It's a harder surgery simply because of your size. And it's a bad example to people, I think. So that I think a guy like you are very lean. You are the poster child, and you've been very lean for a long time. You are the poster child for this. I'm not saying you have to do it, but if it's something you're considering doing, you've for sure earned it.
No, thank you. I need other people to tell me, because I can't get there myself for some reason.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm getting there. I'm working on it for sure. So we kind of talked about the common that's one of them when I was going to ask you the question of what's the common misconception of, drastic weight loss or something. And, loose skin is part of it. Is there anything else that comes to mind is like what people don't understand what happens when you lose a lot of weight?
Yeah, I think there's a few things like, there's the conversation about how, there's a willpower component, right? And people talk about like, you know, and a willingness to be hungry. And I think that often what's missed in conversations about hunger is the different types of hunger that there are, right? And this I say simply because for me, it was really revelatory to like get around and dig around at what was causing my hunger. And I think there's, if we want to get super technical, it's like the two scientific pathways to hunger are homeostatic and hedonic. And homeostatic means the amount of energy your body needs just to live, to go through its daily routine. There is a certain energy requirement. You know, you think about like your car. If you want to drive your car 100 miles, it needs a certain amount of gas. And that would be the homeostatic pathway to hunger. Your body is going to regulate this hunger with hormones. It's going to release hormones to ensure that you eat. It's going to send signals to your brain, to your gut, saying you need to eat. And then the hedonic pathway can be emotional. You can become emotional, and that can drive hunger. You can be, marketing can be a big driver to hedonic hunger. Like I noticed that you use the red and yellow coloring in your background. Those colors have been proven through science to drive hunger. So just using red and yellow can cause to get hungry. You can have the smell of food make you hungry. You can have the sight of food make you hungry. And then even just like boredom can be a part of the hedonic pathway. I think I heard a guy talk about this recently, and he also added conditioned hunger. So this would be something like, but I think technically it would fall under hedonic with stuff like boredom. But like you sit down every night to watch TV, and when you're not dieting, you eat a bag of chips. And then when you are dieting and you sit down to watch TV, even if you've eaten all the necessary calories for the day and your body is not physically in need of energy, you can feel hunger in the same way. The same hormones are pumped out because you have conditioned yourself to eating while you watch TV. If you spend 10 years driving to work in the morning and stopping at a drive-through, you can become conditioned to have those hunger cues turn on just getting in your car in the morning.
That happens to me every day. Like when I leave work and I go home, I'm conditioned to go in and eat something, because it doesn't matter if I just got done filming here and I ate, probably more calories than I eat in a day because I'm tasting this crazy food, a French dip brisket sandwich. And that's like 1,000 calories for 3 bites. But if I go home, I'm like going to the cupboard, even if I'm not hungry or not. It's just because that's like you were saying, my condition. I'm going in, I'm going to have some snack and sit and talk to my kids or whatever. And it's so true for me. Definitely.
And
patterns.
Physiologically, these will be experienced by the human body in the same way as just a need of energy, like your car would need to drive for 100 miles. The body will send the exact same signals. And so you could have a quote unquote normal sized person who has never experienced feeling hungry, or the 100 reasons you and I might experience hunger. Their body maybe is turned off to all of that stuff and only experiences hunger when it needs fuel to move, to breathe, for the heart to beat. And so I think it is one of these things where, like, until you've experienced it, you cannot understand exactly how many times my body will send me thoughts of food in an attempt to get me to eat when I don't need to eat. My solution for apathy, sadness, happiness, boredom, anxiety, it's all food. Food is my go-to salve for all these things, all happening on a subconscious level. And so, like getting in there and recognizing it, I think is the first step to being responsible for it. But like, I don't know that a lot of people, because today we have marketing for diets where it's like, just don't eat bread, or, you know, just cut out red dye 40 and seed oils, and that's all you have to do. And so then you're ignoring all these other things that might be going on with you, where it's like, yeah, okay, you're not eating seed oil and red dye 40, but you're sad a lot and you're eating to make yourself feel better. And I doubt you're going to get to whatever weight goal you have, because you're going to blow through this homeostatic level of hunger with all the other ancillary ways that the human body can get hungry. And none of this is going to get examined with the get rich quick scheme diets that are so prevalent now.
Yeah. You know, another thing that we have in common is we're both sober people. And my journey for weight loss didn't start until after I got sober. And it was kind of, you know, I needed to replace my time and my thoughts from drinking and doing all the other crap that I was doing with something positive. And, you know, and I started just walking around the track at my gym. And that's what I did for a long time, listening to Tony Robbins' podcasts or tapes, you know, and that's how I got started. But it took me, I had to get sober first before I was like able to address some of the other health concerns that I had. Did you have a similar path, or did you start losing weight before you got sober?
No, sobriety had to happen first for sure. And unfortunately, I think the two things correlate really neatly for me. But like my first few or my first couple of years attempting sobriety, I had a similar kind of structured idea in place of, if I can stay sober for 30 days, I will be solved and I won't be an addict anymore.
Yeah.
And then I can dabble, you know, like if I can stay sober for 30 days, 140 is not going to kill me because I've been sober and I'm now a sober person. And so I think the thing that made me understand the mechanisms of sobriety quicker was that my addiction was rapidly going to kill me. And my weight was going to take decades to kill me, and my substance use was going to kill me right away. And so I'd spend 30 days sober, I'd go out drinking, I'd wind up using drugs, you know, it would spiral out of control really quick. And so I learned very early on, or very quickly, that I wasn't getting rid of this condition. It was just something I had to manage. And so I've been in management of that for a long time. I don't know why. I think partially it's because I have to eat and I can't be abstinent from food. So I just assumed like the principles that I'm applying to my sobriety cannot work with food because I cannot be abstinent from food. I have to eat 3 times or whatever. You know, some people don't eat 3 times a day, but I like to eat 5 times a day. And I can't, certainly can't do that. There's no abstinence there. And then I also really appreciate what you do about like demoralizing food and taking the good bad out of it. Like I see you eating food all the time that for a long time I would have considered bad food and not to be eaten. And that too, that extreme with food just never worked for me. When I lived that way, it was so fragile that when it broke completely and I couldn't come back from it. And now I don't have hard, fast, never to be eaten foods. I have foods that are certainly rarer than other foods. And I find even sometimes like harder to navigate my day when I eat them because I won't feel great necessarily after I eat them. Like you just talked about a French dip sandwich. There's a place out here with this guy, Salt Hank, has a French dip sandwich restaurant.
I was going to bring that up. I saw that video and I was like, man, that looks so good. I can't wait to ask Ethan about it.
Dude, it was incredible. And I ate half the sandwich and I felt fine. I felt great, actually. And then I couldn't not eat another half of a sandwich. And then I felt awful. And it like basically ruined my day. And so, but like there was a version of me in the past that would have taken that and gone like, well, all bets are off. Let's go get a pizza. And I'm going to like go to sleep and wake up 3 months from now having gained 50 pounds going, how did this happen? And now I recognize what's occurred. I put the brakes on and I get back into my routine, you know, which I think is a better way to live. But to your initial question, I had to get sober first. And then eventually I had to basically apply the same types of tools to my behavior with food that I apply to, while also not being abstinent from food, which is tough because I'm abstinent from drugs and alcohol, which is a hell of a lot easier, but a hell of a lot more simple than my, you know, relationship with food is just way more complicated.
Yeah. I think that, you know, the whole moralizing food thing, I'm able to do it pretty much regularly now, but in the beginning of my weight loss journey, it was for sure. I mean, and I, you know, similar to a lot of people, had to go through keto, had to go through these different diets, the isogenics, 2 shakes and a meal diet, and all this stuff to really kind of figure it out for myself. And it wouldn't have worked if, you know, I just listened to a podcast that said, no, you have to have a balanced diet and this is the way to do it. It's really like a lot of things in life. And I'm seeing this with my kids now, is like, you almost have to learn this stuff for yourself. And it's tough because there's people like you and me sharing our experience to help people not have to go through all the struggles that we went through in the beginning with weight loss. But for me, it was, I had to work through each of the crazy diets and saying this is bad food and I'll never have a slice of pizza again. And this to get to the point where I am now, where I can take a bite of a competition style rib that has, you know, 50 grams of fat and 50 grams of sugar and 2 grams of protein in it. Yeah, so I have worked hard at understanding that there's no bad food. It's just, you know, you have to take it in stride. And, you know, something I actually learned from you, and it's very important to keep that relationship with your kids. And as funny as it may sound, is they like to make stuff. They made, you know, my oldest daughter's boyfriend's birthday was last Sunday, and my middle daughter wanted to make him cake pops. Well, if they want you to take a bite of the cake pop or taste the dough, because I'm chef dad, you know, can you taste the frosting to make sure it tastes right? Can you taste this? And there was years and years that I wouldn't do that, and it made me feel bad. And then I heard you tell the story that they actually stopped asking you to taste things, and that broke my heart, honestly, when you told me that, because, I mean, those are the type of relationships that you can't pay for, you know, that when you want your kids to feel good about themselves because you give them a pat on the back and say, that's the best chocolate banana bread I've ever had, you know?
Right. Yeah. No, yeah. The whole thing I was searching for was like becoming this, imagined perfect version of myself that I found a lot of the areas in my life were actually being held back due to all the restrictions I placed on food and my life. And so like the perfect version of myself is like a guy who spends a lot of time being present with his wife and his kids. And I can do that fat or thin. So I need to start doing that more, just so that, you know, it's like in my recovery, act as if has been a big saying that I've heard tossed about a lot, where it's like, I don't always know exactly how to get there, but I can pretend. I can look at other people and go like, oh, what does that guy have that I want? Okay, I'm going to act as if I'm that guy and just behave in a way that I see as better. And like, you know, being able to have a bite of my kids' dessert when they make it is far more rewarding than being so strict with my own diet that I can't participate in their lives at all.
Yeah. Um, one thing that, a lot of the health people online talk about, or a couple things that they talk about, is like sleep, getting your steps in, weight training. Is there a way to rank those for you? Is there something that comes to the top of the list that's most important?
I think sleep is absolutely the most important. If I don't sleep well, everything else suffers. I'm much hungrier. I'm irritable. I'm not present. Steps are harder. The gym is harder. So for sure, sleep, I think, is number one. And then I honestly, like, I guess it depends. Like in my life today, I might actually rank steps as more important than lifting weights. But I've been lifting weights pretty much consistently since 2004. And for many, many years of that time, I wasn't moving as much. I would go and lift weights and that would be it. And so like in my life today, if I haven't gone to the gym, but I've gotten steps, I'm like, okay, that's okay. But I wouldn't trade steps for going to the gym and lifting weights. Now, if I was actively dieting, I think I would put a heavier emphasis on lifting weights to preserve muscle tissue while I'm losing weight, to protect it a little bit. But like, I'm not in the gym trying to set PRs. I'm not trying to build a bunch of muscle anymore. I'm really just in there maintaining the muscle I have and looking for that kind of neurological relief that I get through exercise. And I actually find I can get that a little bit easier today with cardio than I can with lifting weights. I still do lift weights 5 to 6 days a week. But I've increased my cardio a good deal.
Yeah, I've heard you talk about that and working on your VO2 max. What's the deal with VO2 max? How do you think about that?
Well, truly, the VO2 max, my VO2 max could be dramatically increased if I just lost more weight. And so there is a little bit of me that's going like, I'm also almost 50 years old. I have 224 pounds of lean tissue.
That's a lot.
It's a lot. It's like, do I expect to maintain this much lean tissue into my 70s for the next 20 years, or am I going to be kind of a little bit more realistic and go like, no, I'm still a pretty big guy, and I could probably let a little bit of this go. And so I think having some more, I'm not quite at the point of like dieting to do this yet, but like the idea is kind of circling my head of like, instead of 250, maybe I should be 225. And if I'm 225, there's no way I have 224 pounds of lean tissue. I mean, that's just physically impossible, right?
Yeah.
There's just no bones. There's no skin. I mean, not skin is counted as lean tissue, but there's no fat at all, no bones. I'm just a blob of muscle, right? So I have started to get a little bit at peace with the idea of giving up some of the lean tissue in order to have weight loss, be a little kinder to my joints, focus on VO2 max. I had a stellar VO2 max when I was riding bikes all the time. I doubt that I'll ever get quite back there.
What does the VO2 max do for you? Like, to someone that doesn't know what a VO2 max is, what is it actually showing or doing?
It's showing how efficiently your body uses the oxygen you're taking in. So like how much use out of the oxygen you're getting. And the equation is such that the simplest way to kind of increase your number without actually increasing your ability at all is weight loss. If you lose weight, the number goes up because it's a number divided by your weight. But if you want to actually increase your ability, you can do that. It's just a slower, harder process. And so like the formula I'm working with is like, okay, I'm going to do more cardio, which is going to increase, and I'm doing it thoughtfully, right? Like 2 days a week, I do interval training, and 2 days a week, I just tack on a little bit longer, like zone 2 cardio to the end of my workout with weights. But then also when I really want to see the number go up, I can lose weight, and that will just make it jump up without actually changing what I'm physiologically capable of.
So for your general diet these days, you're maintaining, is it something you take a lot of time with at the beginning of the week, is meal prepping and things like that? Or have you been doing it long enough where you just, what 6 ounces, kind of what you want to eat or what your macros should be, and you kind of know what I should have 6 ounces of chicken breast, should have some rice and veggies for this meal, I should do, eggs and yogurt in the morning? Or do you still measure everything out?
No, I don't measure anymore. I can eyeball a plate of food now and say that's the only thing I do measure are fats, kind of ancillary fats. I will measure a tablespoon of olive oil if I'm having a salad. I won't just do a glug, glug, glug over the salad, which is,
yeah.
My wife once challenged me. It was, this was, probably around 2014 or 2015. The hot new diet at the time was something called HCG, and it was you got a shot of some hormone called HCG, and it increased it was the pregnant woman hormone, and it's supposed to preserve lean tissue while you're in this extreme. It's all BS. But the 2 days leading up to it, before you start actually dieting, and then the diet itself was 500 calories a day for a month, and you lose a ton of weight, and then it comes back so quick. It's the worst diet ever. But you're supposed to gorge. You're supposed to eat so much fat and food on the 2 days leading up to the actual ridiculously low calorie diet. And I remember day one, I was going nuts, and by the end of the day, and I felt awful. And my wife was like, dude, what are you doing? This is crazy. And I was like, no, I have to do this in order for the diet to work. And she's like, you don't really have to do any of this. And I was like, I don't eat nearly this much fat. And she's like, have you ever measured how much olive oil? I watch you make a salad, and you got to have nearly a half a cup of olive oil in there. And I was like, no way, it's a tablespoon. And the next day she was like, okay, make a salad. And I made a salad, and she said, great, now let's pour out the oil. And it was over a quarter of a cup. And I thought was a tablespoon. So I do still measure, because it's also so small and so nutrient dense and so calorically dense that I cannot eyeball a tablespoon of olive oil to save my life, but I can eyeball
peanut butter.
Oh yeah, or anything like that. The fats are really still the tricky part for me. I can easily see what a portion of chicken breast is, and I'm really into chicken breast tenderloins, which are just somehow a more tender part of the chicken breast, and they don't have all the fat and calories of a chicken thigh, which are clearly more delicious, but they somehow have the mouth feel of a chicken thigh or closer to that. Then I think this is why Cane's is so popular. They use only the chicken breast tenderloins,
Yes.
But I can eyeball that all day long. I can eyeball a cup or half a cup of rice. Veggies, I don't even really worry about. I'm at no risk of overeating veggies, especially if I don't put fat on them. And so that's pretty much where I'm at. And I do meal prep. I don't do it just once for the week. I wind up doing a Sunday and a Wednesday. And that is usually, and it's never portioned out meals. It'll be a big container of steamed broccoli and a big container of rice and a big container of chicken or salmon or ground beef. You can get really good lean ground beef. And then I'm just making meals out of that through the week.
And I've graduated into that myself just in the last, I would say, 6 or 9 months. And it's been really helpful then the kids can eat it. My wife can eat some of the stuff that I've prepped. God forbid they would eat a Japanese sweet potato, because that's weird. But I love getting all that stuff cooked, and then you can kind of mix and match and do some stuff. One thing that people ask me about eating healthy and things like that, and I don't know why, but everybody thinks nuts are is going to solve their problem or whatever. nuts are so healthy and everything. And I have to explain, nuts are good for you, but you don't understand. It's 6 almonds is a serving, and it's like you can eat handfuls of these things. They're delicious, but it's like, that's like 1,000 calories. And some people can't wrap their heads around it. Well, if it's good for you, why can't I just eat what I want of them? That's been my downfall,
Yeah, 4
at times.
Walnuts in a shake, in a protein shake, could be great. But a bag of them, I remember once I got a bag of, what are the round ones? Brazil nuts? No, macadamia nuts.
Those are the big ones. Mac nuts, those are awesome.
I got a bag of Mac nuts from Trader Joe's. This was while I was on keto. I ate the whole bag, no problem. And I later found out that the small bag of these nuts had 1,600 calories. And like there were many years where that meant nothing to me, and I was bashing my head against the wall, wondering why I wasn't losing weight doing keto, or I had lost weight the first couple of weeks, and then it just utterly stalled. So yeah, I think everything, but like if you were preconditioned to being able to eat 16 chicken breasts in a sitting, that wouldn't necessarily be good for you either. I don't know who could do that. But just everything has its place. Like, I need to eat some salt. I could probably lose 5 pounds today if I stopped eating salt. But I'd also be lightheaded all day tomorrow, and that's not good. But I can also gain 5 pounds if I put soy sauce on everything. That's like not calorically dense at all, but super high in sodium, and I'd be bloated and puffy tomorrow. And so salt is one of those things where it's like, yeah, I need a little bit of it. I can easily get out of hand with it. So I have to like find my way to navigate life with stuff like that. And nuts are, I put some flax seeds in my shakes in the morning. And occasionally I will put a few walnuts in, because I think they add a flavor to the shake that's really interesting. And they usually have, the flax seeds have fiber, which I want to get a certain amount of fiber every day. And I believe walnuts have omega-12s. I could be completely wrong about that, but that's how I've been rationalizing in my head, getting a little dose of this omega that I would otherwise not be getting. But yeah, I can't eat them like a snack. They're like adding a spice or something.
Right. Something that's come across my feed a lot and people started talking more about is fiber. So I've just recently started kind of considering that in my diet. Why is fiber important, and how many grams a day do you try to get, and what should we be thinking about when we talk about fiber?
I try to get 30 grams a day, and fiber for me came up because despite all my weight loss, I still had an elevated cholesterol number, and it wasn't even high. It was like borderline, but my doctor started talking about if this doesn't come down after some period of time, you're going to have to start thinking about a statin. And I was like, okay, well, what is a way that I can avoid medication? And he talked about fiber, and that was really the beginning of the increase of fiber in my life. And now there's a lot of other things to think about, like if I cut up a bunch of veggies and eat those with my rice and chicken, I'm certainly eating a higher volume of food, and so like calorically, it's a pretty good trade-off for the amount and the density of food that you get versus the caloric impact. And then whatever, I don't get into the microbiome at all, but I do know it exists. And like, I want to have as good a relationship. Yeah.
That's what I was doing it for. That's what I was heard. The microbiome, they want to feed off the fiber, and that regulates your blood sugar better and all that type of stuff.
Right. And so like, I don't know that there's a bunch of evidence saying that's not true. So I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that I'm like cautiously assisting my microbiome,
Well, just to wrap things up here, just because I'm curious, what is life like for you now? You do the podcast American Glutton pretty much on a weekly basis, from what I can tell. Then you started a new show called Lifelong. and you're still doing some acting too. So where's how do you balance that out? How much time are you spending on acting and the podcast, and what are the other things that you're up to?
I'm doing those. Lifelong is cool. It's a weekly thing we do live, and people can come on. It's basically a live Zoom and ask questions about anything they're struggling with or interested in. And that's been a lot of fun. I really enjoy talking to people about health and fitness and weight loss and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And acting is like that is, and I'm also writing a book. I've got a book deal with a publisher, and like that's a really long process. Like I sold this book and thought I was done, and they were like, no, here's all our notes. You got to rewrite it, and that's taken a long time. But is
that like your story, or is it based on health, or?
Yeah, it's basically a memoir of my life through the lens of addiction, and that's both drugs and food.
I'm gonna love that. That's so good. That's the best type of books for me.
Yeah, it's been fun writing that. And then acting, acting is a tricky thing. Like I just did a movie, and like basically life stops while I'm acting, and I'm just doing tunnel vision acting work and trying to hold the pieces of my life together as best I can. The last movie I did was actually the first one where, because all my kids are either graduated from college or in college, they're all legally adults, and so my wife was able to come with me for a month up in Northern California, and we had a great time. And like our weekends were like little vacations where I would normally be miserable alone in some hotel by myself, wanting to just fly home for the weekend. Here, me and my wife were like teenagers again, which was really fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah. But during the week, diet is harder, getting to the gym is harder, trying to maintain that, and certainly doing podcasts becomes almost impossible while I'm acting.
Mm-hmm.
But I have a few movies set to come out, and I just love doing that, so I don't see that slowing down anytime soon.
The one clip, I don't know, you recently posted, it was like, you're the bad guy, and like you're going after this little girl, and I was just like, that is so different from how I know talking to you like this is. It was so funny for me to see, but you were like, it was so much fun making that, and I could tell you were having a good time.
Yeah, dude, I have really enjoyed. I have a movie coming out March 6th called Dolly, and I don't want to really give anything away, but I've been playing characters more. I think the majority of my career I played like kind of dim-witted but very sweet. Other than American History X, he's still dim-witted, but he's not super sweet, that character. But mostly I'm just like this kind of nice guy, and I've been really enjoying not playing a nice guy. And my wife is like, no, you are nice, and our kids can never see that. And I'm like, what? My kids never watched anything I did anyways. What do they care? But yeah, I've been really having fun lately.
That's so cool. That's so cool. I got a very quick lightning round if you want to play along. And then we'll wrap up. Okay, lightning round, barbecue health edition.
Okay.
You just answer however you want. Brisket, fatty or lean?
Fatty, dude. If we're eating brisket, let's eat it.
Favorite barbecue side, mac and cheese, slaw, beans, or cornbread?
I will say slaw. I am such a big fan of slaw in general. I have slaw all the time in my life today. I'll do an Asian slaw, a traditional slaw. There's a Montreal slaw that I love so much that's basically just white wine vinegar and garlic powder. And I had it at this deli in Montreal, and I loved it so much. I make that all the time here. And then there is, for a big bucket of slaw, there is a couple tablespoons of olive oil on there.
Yeah.
But like, I remember as a kid loving KFC slaw, where it's all the cabbage is diced into
chopped
tiny
up
little pieces. Yeah. I love slaw. I love sauerkraut. I love the German dish Rotkohl, which is like red cabbage and apples that's cooked down.
I grew up on that. My grandma made it the best.
I love cabbage so much. And I find I'm so rarely disappointed in a cabbage side. Anywhere you go, I haven't had a coleslaw I haven't really liked. I've had lots of mac and cheese I haven't liked. There's been lots of bites of mac and cheese that I've had that I've gone, this was so not worth it that I will choose coleslaw.
Awesome. Most overrated fitness advice online?
Oh, don't eat carbs.
Yeah. One habit you'll never give up?
I think, unfortunately, nicotine. I will not give up nicotine. I haven't smoked cigarettes in 20 years, but for a long time I sucked on Nicorette lozenges, and now they have these pouches. And
have you had the toothpicks?
I haven't, but I've heard about those, and I should get into those. But yeah, I am a fan of nicotine.
One food you can overdo fast.
I mean, I can overdo just about any type of food fast, but I can very, very easily overdo barbecue. I can overdo any kind of fatty meat. I can overdo pizza, burgers. I can overdo just about anything. The things I can't overdo are lean meats, veggies without fat, and carbs without fat. If you reduce the fat, it is very hard for me to overdo it.
So the last question in the lightning round, best non-exercise reset, like reset your mind or...
I like reading. I really, really like to read. And if I can, and it's become all too easy for me to listen to books on Audible. And I'm a big fan of that. Especially like walking around the city, I can just put on a book on Audible and go for a walk. But if I can lay on a couch or in my bed and read a book, there's a book I love so much by, I'm blanking on his name. It's called The Creative Act by Rick Rubin. And that book, I find there's a couple books. There's Anne Lamott's Bird by Bird and Rick Rubin's The Creative Act. And I read these books that have nothing at all to do with dieting, and every sentence relates to me on a diet. And so those are pretty cool books.
That's so cool. Well, Ethan, I mean, I really, really appreciate you coming on the show, and your show, American Glutton, has inspired me and many, many others. So I appreciate you, and keep doing what you're doing, and hope to see you in person sometime.
Yes, sir. I can't wait to come and eat some of your food.
Well, we're opening a brand new restaurant sometime early next year, and it's literally 5 minutes away from O'Hare Airport. So if you're ever coming through Chicago, it's going to be amazing. The first ever Duce's Wild restaurant. And
I love it. I will come for sure.
That would be amazing. That would be amazing. Well, thank you, and best of luck in everything you're doing. And I'll try to tune in to Lifelong. I've seen it come up on my feed. I will try to tune in and add to the conversation.
Awesome. Thank you, Duce, and thanks for having me.
Awesome. Thanks, Ethan. Have a great day.